Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday night, June 29th edition of StudentLoanJustice.org, the live stream. My name is Alan Collins. I'm the founder of StudentLoanJustice.org. To all of you who are new, welcome. We are glad that you found us. Where have you been? So we are the oldest, largest, and pretty much only group around actually fighting for student loan justice. For the first 15 years of our existence, we've been fighting very moderately for the return of bankruptcy protections to student loans. But folks, I am here to tell you we are in a new day now. It is a failed lending system. Capital F, put a fork in it. It is done. It's time for the president to get rid of these loans, to cancel all student loans that he can. Now, there are other cancellation plans out there, folks, and we've been doing this for a long time. Believe me when I tell you that all the other cancellation proposals are nonsense. They call on Congress passing a law to raise a bunch of money, tax money, to pay to the lenders to forgive loans. Well, first of all, the taxpayer has already paid for these loans many years ago. And by the way, the taxpayer has probably made most of their money back. So there's no good reason that the taxpayer should have to pay for loan cancellation twice. It just makes no sense. But here's the reality, folks. The reality is that whatever Congress might pass will never work. You know, we've got 3 or 4 proposals floating around right now, and none of them are calling for full-on loan cancellation. All of them are calling for partial cancellation, up to $10,000, up to $30,000, and that in itself is off-putting. But what the most important thing that you need to know is that anything that Congress passes, even if it's called loan cancellation, it will be administered by a Department of Education that has no desire or intentions of canceling any loans. So Congress could pass legislation that says loan cancellation, and they'll pat themselves on the back, and people will probably vote for them, but it just won't happen. Look at the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program. 99.2% of the people who thought they were getting their loans forgiven last year through that program found out the hard way that they're not. They didn't dot their I's, they didn't cross their T's. I could go on for literally hours here talking about all the loans that the Department of Education should have canceled but hasn't and won't, because it's not in their DNA to do so. So the bottom line, folks, is that all of the loan cancellation proposals that we're seeing right now out in the zeitgeist, they are all essentially fake. You know, pardon my French, but they are bullshit. They will never work. And, you know, we supported Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and other people calling for loan cancellation. But even Bernie and Elizabeth's loan cancellation plans were nonsense. There's no good reason to raise $1 or $2 trillion in taxes to pay for loan cancellation. And here's why. Today, right now, this second, President Trump could issue an or whoever may be president down the road, the president can cancel all federally held student loans, and that's like 90% of all loans, by executive order. The president can do this without raising one dime in tax, not needing one dime in tax appropriation from Congress, and not adding one penny to the national debt. By executive order. The Higher Education Act of 1965 gives the president and the secretary all the power they need to cancel federally owned student loans. So that is the way that these loans are going to be canceled. And make no mistake, folks, it is a failed lending system, no matter what you might read. The default rate for everybody walking around right now with student loans, my best estimate is probably 65, if not 70%. Even the recently resigned chief operating officer of the federal lending program says, he told me personally, that 80% of all federal student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. So I could go on for quite a while now here telling you why this is a failed lending system, but get used to those 3 words, failed lending system. That's what this is. and we are unfortunately living under it. You know, John Adams said many years ago, 250 years ago, said there are two ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword, the other is by debt. Well, we are living that nightmare right now, folks, and we do not have to put up with it. You know, the founding fathers called for uniform bankruptcy laws in the Constitution. And that has been stripped uniquely from federal student loans. They called for equal protection under the law in the Bill of Rights. Yet, economically disadvantaged people who go to college, which student loan borrowers are by definition, have to endure far different laws when it comes to getting their loans considered in bankruptcy court. So this is an unconstitutional debt in the first place. And every conservative out there who claims to be concerned about big government should be very concerned about this failed lending system. It is a big government monstrosity. Now, we started a petition on change.org. We have 311 or 12 or 13,000 signatures as we speak. It is calling on the president to do what I said 2 seconds ago. Issue an executive order literally canceling all federally owned loans. And we are also pushing the president, I should say, to do this in a way such that the canceled debt is not taxable income. I know that becomes a big deal for a lot of people out there. But folks, I am here to tell you, this is the only meaningful way that student loans are actually going to be canceled. Now, it's a failed lending system, but that could mean many things. We could have a good outcome and we could have a bad outcome to this whole thing. The good outcome is what I just said. The president acknowledges it for what it is, cancels the loans, resets the system, and comes up with something better going forward, something more fair, and something hopefully that makes colleges far less expensive. I don't know that the federal government even really deserves or should be in the lending business at this point. I think most people who have looked at any length at this student loan monstrosity as it has developed over the years would be inclined to agree. But we're not worried about that right now. What we are worried about is the 2 trillion pound gorilla, the elephant in the room, if you will, that is now staring us in the face right now. So our petition is it, folks. We are ground zero in the true fight for student loan justice. I don't know how you found us. I'm glad you did, but we are the pioneers on this. We are the tip of the spear. You know, the other groups out there pushing for those nonsense student loan cancellation proposals, don't waste your time with them. Don't be distracted. I know that at least one of these groups is backed, believe it or not, by the student loan industry. So all is not what it may appear to be on the internet. This group here has stood the test of time. We are fighting only and supremely and absolutely and totally for the borrowers, which I am a borrower. Everybody just about on this group is a borrower. And we will never stop. And frankly, folks, I could not be more optimistic today than I have ever been in the 15-year lifespan of this group. Hey, Emina, how's it going? Hey, if you guys have any questions or comments as we go forward, don't hesitate to throw them out. You know, John Adams, many years ago, said there's 2 ways to conquer and enslave a country. One is by the sword, the other is by debt. Well, I am here to tell you that there are some very unconstitutional people in the world who are trying exactly that. And we cannot let them, because, folks, this battle that we are in is not only for ourselves, but for the tens or hundreds of millions of people to follow in our footsteps. We do not have to take this shit, people. Pardon my French. But, you know, our constitutional rights have been run over roughshod by this lending system. And in the words of conservative Grover Norquist, government should be small enough so that if you had to, you could take it to the bathroom and drown it in the tub. Well, I am here to tell you that that is precisely where we are at with this lending system. The president must cancel these loans, whether it's this president or the next. It's got to happen. You know, forget about the nonsense that you see in the newspapers, on TV, etc. The people who are talking about loan cancellation, they will never pass meaningful loan cancellation. They just won't. So if you care about your student loans and getting rid of them, you have to do everything that you can to help us. You know, we are just a citizens group. The strength of our muscle lies directly in how hard the people out there work to make our mission a reality. There's two things that we're fighting for, folks. One is the cancellation of all student loans by executive order. Anything you can do to promote that petition is very helpful. We've already been on Minneapolis Public Radio and Fox News Radio and Coast to Coast and C-SPAN and Status Quo and a couple other news platforms. But anything you can do to get a reporter or a producer or a news organization to look at our petition and consider it and report on it would be very, very, very helpful. And, you know, just in general, we ask everybody who signed to get 10 people to sign. I know that sounds like a lot, but hear me out, folks. There's 55 million people in the country who either have student loans or are co-signed on them. Of those 55 million people, 44 million of them will never be able to repay their loans. So if you know 10 people with student loans, 8 of them are freaking out about them as we speak. They may not tell you, they may not admit it, but that's just the math. So it shouldn't be hard at all for us to get 5, 10 million, not kidding, signatures on our petition and get 4 or 5 million people in this group. It starts right now with that petition, though. If student loans are at all important to you, and I think they are, you need to spend some serious time between now and November doing everything you can to push that petition. It will help, folks. It will help tremendously. So the second thing we're fighting for, I think I sort of alluded to earlier, you know, after the president cancels all federal loans, there's still going to be like 10 or 15% of student debt out there. Well, there are 2 bills in Congress right now that would return bankruptcy protections to all remaining student loans. So S1414 in the Senate, HR 2648 in the House. And I would urge you all, whether or not you have private loans or Perkins loans or the older style FFELP loans, help us push for this legislation. The number one thing that you can do on that is get a Republican senator to co-sponsor S1414. If we can get that first Republican senator domino to fall, then there's a good chance that it'll be fait accompli. That'll be pretty much all we need to do to get the ball rolling, to finally at least get the same bankruptcy rights as every other borrower for every other type of loan has. Hey, Emma has a comment. I get a lot of opposition when I bring up student loan debt. How do we best respond to, number one, I paid off my loans, you should pay off yours. And number two, there are more important priorities. Student loans are not a priority. I am glad you asked, Emina. You know, I was just about to come around to that. Now, yes, we have opposition. Number one, when people think, just say the word college student, and automatically people over a certain age, or maybe not even not, they think kegger, they think spring break, they think Fort Lauderdale, beer, sun, fun. And that automatically gives people a terrible attitude and sort of a paternalistic attitude when they speak to this issue. And there's not a lot we can do about that, but I will say the zeitgeist is changing a lot on that. It was far worse 15 years ago. But here's the thing. A lot of people go, hey, when you borrow money, you got to pay it back. And, hey, I worked my way through college picking berries, and why can't you? And, hey, I paid my student loans back, why can't you? Well, to those people, particularly the third kind that Emina alludes to those people I say, you paid off your student loans? Congratulations. I applaud you and I'm impressed. And if I had a merit badge, I would pin it on you because you, sir, deserve it. However, nothing that you can say, nothing that you think, nothing that you feel, no opinion you might have to offer, nothing you might even imagine will change the fact that this is a failed lending system. 80% of all federal student loan borrowers will never be able to repay their loans. It is a broken, unconstitutional lending system, and it's got to go. Now, if you feel bad about having your loans canceled, I get that. But did Wall Street feel bad over the past month and a half when the Treasury Department threw $4, $5, $6 trillion at them? Did the wealthiest among us feel bad when just in the past few months, Donald Trump gave 43,000 of them a $1.6 million tax break? No, they didn't feel bad. Are they going to give the money back? No, they are not. So this country needs fiscal stimulus right now. And right now, the president can cancel these loans and not add one penny to the national debt and not need one dime of tax money, not need to pay for it at all. By executive order, he could do this. There is no better, easier, or cheaper, or I would say better targeted way to stimulate the economy. I mean, this would massively stimulate the economy. Would not add a dime to the national debt, would not cost the taxpayers anything. And remember, the taxpayers have been making a king's ransom on this lending system over the past 10 years. So of the $1.5 trillion outstanding in federal student loan debt, probably, and nobody knows this number, but it's probably around less than a third of that is actual unpaid principal. Most of it is just interest and penalties and fees and all that stuff rolled up into more principal and more interest, etc. And given that the government has been profiting $50, $60, $70 billion a year on this lending system in interest, the president could cancel these loans tomorrow and the taxpayer would be breaking about even. So there is no better way to stimulate the economy. And everybody out there feeling bad, that's exactly what our opposition wants you to think. You know, they have pushed this lending system over the cliff, and they've used our own guilt against us to do it. Because we're all by and large credit-worthy people. Nobody wants to welch on a debt. I mean, that's just human nature. The college students are no different today than they were 10 or 20 years ago. We are as responsible or as irresponsible as we've ever been. We haven't changed much. I would say maybe we're a little bit more responsible these days. We haven't changed. What has changed is this lending system. This lending system has become a big government monstrosity. And anybody that wags their finger at you, Emina, the chances are they hate big government. The chances are they consider themselves to be conservative. Well, you should wag your finger right back at them and say, you know, while you're wagging your finger at the students, the colleges, which are, according to you, indoctrinating our youth with socialism and communism, etc., they are making a fortune. You know, by wagging their finger at us, the haters are actually being used as tools to perpetuate the worst big government monstrosity that this country has ever before seen, and they should be ashamed of themselves, and they should turn in their conservative cards, because they've been played. You might also mention to them, and we're a nonpartisan group, I don't have any strong opinions, but it is a fact that some of the government profits that are sucked out of us through this lending system are being used to fund Obamacare. So most people that wag their finger at you, they cannot stand Obamacare. You may want to bring up that point with them. And you know, to everybody out there, and I know a lot of people would feel maybe a little bad about their loans being forgiven because it just doesn't seem right. But I will say to you, if you feel bad about that, then use the money that you would have used to pay your student loans to help somebody go through college for no debt, or mentor someone. Do something that makes you feel better, because I'm telling you, there is no better, more noble, more appropriate, more patriotic fight right now than ours. This lending system is a national threat, and we are fighting not only for ourselves, but for tens or even hundreds of millions of people to follow in our footsteps. And make no mistake, the founding fathers are on our side. They're not on the finger waggers' side. They are on our side. But again, there's nothing that any of the finger waggers out there can say that will alter the inalienable truth, the unalterable fact that this is a failed lending system and it's got to go. And that is the bottom line. Shame on the people who would prop up this big government monstrosity by wagging their fingers at us. And as far as student loans not being a priority, student loans are a priority, Emina. $100 billion a year in interest alone is being sucked out of our economy because of student loans. There are 55 million people in the country with student loans. 44 of those 55 million people will never be able to repay their student loans. And these people vote. 44 million people is nearly enough to elect a president outright. So there are way more of us than there are of the finger waggers who don't know anything about this predatory lending system, who just want to come and make themselves feel better by trying to make us feel bad. Shame on those people. But remember everything I said there, Emina. It's important. Emina also says, number 3, how many of our elected officials have student debt besides AOC? Believe it or not, it's a pretty fair amount. It's about 35 sitting members of Congress, maybe even more now, actually either, they hold student loans. Quite a few of them have Parent Plus loans, it turns out, for their kids and so forth. But, and I would have thought that would have been a good group to target as far as Congress goes. But here's the thing, folks. There's a weird psychological thing for a member of Congress. When he has student debt, he or she tends to go out of their way to say, I'm a good person and I'm not going to go out of my way to fight this lending system because that would appear as though I'm just trying to get out of my own loans. And so there's that weird dynamic at work to where, Marco Rubio either had or has student loans. We've gotten nothing from him. He's like, I have student loans, but they clearly don't feel the pain. And by the way, I might add, any congressional staffer that you talk to, if they have student debt, their loans are being paid for them by the federal government while they are on the job. And so every congressional staffer out there is really kind of beholden to this lending system. So just that's something you may want to keep in mind as you go forward, pushing your Republican senator to co-sponsor S1414. Folks, don't even trip about the haters. We've got them covered. My best advice is don't waste too much time with them. Your time is valuable. And it's far more important to be making our case to the people who it needs to be made for than to be running around playing defense against a bunch of mental midgets that have nothing but knee-jerk, inappropriate wisdom to dispense. We don't need their advice. They have no good advice to give. This is a failed lending system, and anybody that knows anything about it very quickly comes to that same conclusion. And as I said, the nation needs to stimulate the economy right now, and there is absolutely no better opportunity for the president not only to stand up to big government and put a checkmate on this lending system, but there's no better way to stimulate the economy. Wouldn't require 1 penny of tax appropriation, wouldn't add 1 dime to the national debt, and the taxpayers, as I said, are pretty much breaking even on this deal. So there's no reason that our petition shouldn't have 10, 20, even 30 million signatures on it. I kid you not, folks. I kid you not. So fight with us, folks. Be proud to be fighting this fight. Truly, there is no more patriotic thing that you can do. This lending system has gone out of control. It is a Big government monstrosity. I've probably said that 4 times in just this podcast alone, but I can't repeat those 3 words often enough. 2 sets of 3 words. First set, failed lending system. Second one, big government monstrosity. The Republicans should be on our side. And if we do this right, folks, if everybody puts their back into this petition, we can get these loans gone, officially, legitimately gone by election day. So we are the pioneers, like it or don't. You can't unhear what I just said. We are the tip of the spear. So you have a little bit of responsibility, maybe over and above. We've got to punch a little bit above our weight. We've got to pull a little bit more than our weight for the next 5 months. So make it happen. I do not want this lending system to be around come January. I want us to be free. And I want us to heed the call of the founders to fight tyranny. When the government is when the people are afraid of the government, that is tyranny. When the government is afraid of the people, that is liberty. And that is what we are fighting for, folks. The founding fathers are looking down and they are rooting us on. So let us live up to their ideals. Let us do them proud. And if you don't like the founders, just think about all the people who fought and died, sacrificed for the very freedom that we ourselves are fighting for today. Pick up the torch. It's time for us to fight. Tell everybody you know about this group and get everybody you know to sign and share our petition. And get a news organization to report on our petition. We've been featured on 60 Minutes, and we've been featured in the New York Times, and on Fox News, and on MSNBC, and on NPR, and PBS, and Vice News, and Rolling Stone Magazine, and Penthouse Magazine, and did I say the Wall Street Journal, and pretty much you name it, and we've been on. We can be doing interviews all day long. But the way it works is you have to set them up. If you call a reporter or a news organization or email them, tell them, hey, you should really have a look at this petition. It's a new way of canceling loans, and it needs to be in the public discourse. That would be fantastic. We need your help. You need our help. And everybody out there with student loans needs to know about us. So please spread the word. We have stood the test of time, and we are ready to finally end this lending system and set the country free. So good luck to you. God bless, and keep us posted as to your achievements. And in the immortal words of Benjamin Franklin, I will end this by saying, we can hang together and win, or we'll all hang separately. I don't want that second thing to happen. I hope that you don't either. I want that first thing to happen. I hope you agree. Good night. God bless.